Perhaps there's no time better than to look back and see what God has brought you through during this past year. Yes, maybe you experienced times of joy, while for others, maybe a time of hardship and sorrow. Well, on this week's broadcast, we're going to look at God's goodness to us and how the future is as bright as the promises of God. Stay tuned. And welcome to this week's edition of Living Hope Today. We are so honored to have you tune in. You know, we've been out the past couple of weeks for the Christmas break and New Year's, but we're glad to be back as we settle into this new year of 2024 and our all new broadcasts as we begin this year. You know, this week actually marks AICTV's 14th year of ministry, utilizing media technology as a method to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ across native North America. So it's our birthday this week. And in today's broadcast, we're going to take some time to reminisce and talk about how God brought us into this field of ministry and how he is continuing to lead us forward in the new year. So stay with us for this week's episode, especially if you are new to our ministry. And speaking of new viewers, if you have not taken the time to like or follow our Facebook page or YouTube channel, I encourage you to do so today. You know, one of the most difficult things of using social media for your broadcast, it requires a lot of support from the viewers to maintain viewership status and growth. Kind of without likes or comments and followers, our outreach can be limited. So I encourage you, if you are watching us on Facebook, to be sure to hit the like and follow buttons below. Or if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to do the very same thing. Then subscribe to our channel. This, along with the comments that you put down here at the bottom, will help us tremendously. So I hope you'll do that. On this week's broadcast episode, I want to take a bit of time to introduce our ministry and a little bit about our history. We've added some new viewers in the last month or more, with some inquiring about our ministry and how we started, and if the programs are only for Native people, and so on. So we're going to tie a bit of that information into today's broadcast because we are celebrating the beginning of our 14th year of AICTV broadcasting this week. So I encourage you to stay tuned. But before we go any further, let's get started with some great gospel music by a really good friend of mine, Jay Cummings. He is a Assiniboine native he's a singer, he's a songwriter. He also pastors on the Fort Peck Reservation near Poplar, Montana. I want you to listen to him. He sings a cool song that I really think you're going to enjoy. It's entitled Fire and Rain, and we'll be right back.
Who is greater than me? He will surround you with the Holy Ghost.
All right, that was some awesome music by my good friend Jay Cummins from Poplar, Montana. I think I've known Jay for probably about 50 years. In fact, Jay and his brother traveled with our family for a short time back, I want to say it was probably the mid-'70s. And we've always enjoyed his ministry. And I hope you did too. And it was a blessing. That song was a blessing to you. Well, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, I wanted to share a bit about AIC's history, AICTV's history, and our calling to native broadcasting through media production. The other day I heard from a friend who told me she had enjoyed our program and has been a faithful follower for the past, I think she said something like 6 years. But she asked if the broadcast was only for native viewers. Well, I've shared before, this weekly broadcast is open for anyone who cares to join us. But as a native ministry, we do focus on them by including, as you saw just a few seconds ago, Christian native singers and such, interviews and so on with our native people in an effort really to reach out to millions of native people across native North America. However, in using the internet to broadcast, our program, the Lord has allowed to reach around the world to many different nations. And that is amazing. I know a few years back, we realized that our broadcast was seen, I think it was in over 170 nations worldwide and across 6 different continents. It is amazing how God has led this little Christian native organization to reach so many in 14 years of ministry this week. But for those of you who may be new to our ministry, the American Indian Crusade Incorporated is our organization, and it was founded by my uncle, Reverend Tom Claus. He's of the Mohawk tribe. And it basically was formed in May of 1952. And it was formed to do what no other organization or mission organization at that time had done. And that was as a native formed and operated mission organization. And to use native people to reach native people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. They founded the organization to evangelize, to disciple, and to establish native churches under native leadership as far as possible. And in addition, AIC used many different tools to spread the gospel. They developed Bible study programs and materials. They conducted reservation and citywide evangelistic crusades throughout North America. We had printing and distribution of Bibles and gospel tracts that we all did, and a lot of that was done in-house. And AIC also initiated its first delve into media by producing its own in-house studio for radio broadcasting, reaching areas that were often difficult to reach, or reservations that were closed to the gospel. And I'll tell you, God bless those many years that we did, that Tom Claus was our director. And like I said, it was started by Tom Claus, but it was initiated by being with the family of the original Claus Indian family, which included my Uncle Tom Claus, my mother, Shirley Claus Antone, my grandmother, Teresa Claus, the father, Huron Claus, and for a while, even the oldest daughter, Dorothy Claus Hill, was a member of the Claus Indian family. Of course, at that time, they were traveling with Youth for Christ International, and that's how this began. AIC, it was started because they were traveling in Youth for Christ International all around the country. And they noticed that as they went to these major auditoriums through Madison Square Gardens and Town Hall in Philadelphia, many big auditoriums and venues where they would go in for city-wide youth crusades with the likes of Dr. Billy Graham and Jack Wurtson and many others of that time back in the 40s. But as they began to travel, they noticed that one of the things that they saw as they traveled is that though the people there were hearing all this great preaching and singing and so on, my mom and my Uncle Tom Claus began to have their hearts burdened about their own people. Who was reaching their own people? And they noticed that it was difficult to reach our people because there was a lot of mission organizations that were going, but they were not native organizations. They were missionaries who had come in and from different denominations and were reaching out to the native people. They noticed that those missionaries who were non-native were having a difficult time, actually, being accepted onto the Indian reservations and native communities and so on. And when our family would go in, the Claus family would go in, the doors would open up to them. The people on these reservations were much more receptive to the gospel because they saw other native people sharing the gospel message. And this is how they were accepted. So that's kind of the beginning of how AIC really started in those early years and why it was started back then. But leading up in all these years, I would say the first time that we started to get really involved, other than radio, to get involved in Native ministry, especially in media, was probably the beginning was in 1988. We began a media ministry. And I came in in 1980, 81. And my wife and I both came in as part of the ministry, and we were doing, and I was kind of thrown in the fire by the directors at that time and said, "Can you do radio?" "Thank you. Well, we're glad you started it." And it was like I'd never done, I'd been on radio before, but I had never hosted a program or written or produced anything for radio. And so I started doing that immediately. But the more we thought about it, there was maybe other ways that we could reach and have a broader outreach to our native people than radio. And what was coming into being was television and all sorts of things at that time. So we developed a ministry where we began producing videotapes for teaching and evangelism purposes. And the ministry saw hundreds and thousands of videos produced with our all-native team of pastors and evangelists sharing and discipling through this video ministry. And this later turned into producing broadcasts for television production. It was the first such full-time Christian native broadcast in the United States. And we were accepted by evangelists out in Albuquerque. And he had a network of stations all over the country. And so he put us on there free of charge. We didn't have to pay anything. And AIC had raised all its money to buy camera gear and all these different things that we would have to have in order to produce a program. And so that's what we did. And our AIC leadership began to witness the powerful outreach potential of broadcasting. So AIC began to develop a ministry using internet technology as one of the first native Christian organizations to do so. AIC was born in the fall of 2010 and as we tested utilizing a web-based ministry to broadcast both live and recorded programming to the internet. And that was different because that was Facebook had started, I believe, in 2009. And we didn't use Facebook. There was no other type of broadcast service at that time for internet things. It's not like it is today, where you can go to the Facebook, you can go to YouTube, and you can go on there and set your own programs up. We couldn't do that back then. There was not a way to do that. You could watch programming and so on, but they didn't really have that. It was new technology on social platforms like that. And so in 2011, after trying things out in the fall of 2010, we decided that what would be to start up the first Native Christian broadcast network. And we utilized the web to share other Native ministries. We did a library of free books on there. You could download tracks, the books. We had music programs, and much more. Our flagship program was called Native America Magazine. Some of you might remember that. And it was kind of a variety broadcast featuring music, testimonies, and sharing of the gospel in word, and featuring various Christian Native events from across Native America. We included a lot of different crusades and conferences and things like that. And we also did a lot of things live back then. And that was starting to change, too, on Facebook. So we were doing things on our own website. But today we continue in this outreach to Native people through this program. And God is blessed in us seeing hundreds of thousands who have been reached with the gospel, not only here in North America, but basically around the world. And it is our prayer to continue as long as it is possible to use this ministry that God ordained so many years ago. And I think when I think back about that, I don't know if we ever thought our outreach would be as great as it was. We, of course, like I said, internet really brought this on, so it was a powerful way to reach out to Native people around the country. And I really want to thank you, our viewers, who have been faithful to our ministry. You know, the older I get, I often think, how long will I be able to do this? Well, you know, the Lord has been gracious to us, and we are thankful to Him for His blessings on this ministry. And to witness what God is doing through this ministry and how He's opened doors, and we are seeing such tremendous things happening. The one thing that I often think about is my desire to maintain my commitment to Christ in serving Him. I truly believe that we are that generation who will see Jesus in the air to take us home to be with Him in the rapture of the church. So though I'm looking forward to that day, in the meantime, I'm committed to carrying on His work as I have done almost all of my life, to reach people with the good news of Jesus Christ. You know, I like the great English missionary, William Carey, in the 1800s. He was a missionary of the gospel who was known, really, at that time, as the father of modern missions, William Carey. You know, he stated this famous quote, and I'll never forget this. I've always used this, and this is kind of what our theme today is. He stated, "The future is as bright as the promises of God." I love that. And when you look in the scriptures of all the many promises of God to us as believers, our future is bright. God gives us hope. He gives us His promise that He will remain faithful to the end. That is why we titled this program, Living Hope Today, because there is hope in Christ, a blessed hope. As we read in Titus 2:13, it says, "I'm looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ." You know, I don't know what the future holds for me or our ministry, but I am confident in His Word that He will lead and guide us and help us to reach even more in 2024. And I trust you will continue to prayerfully support this ministry as well. You know, we covet your prayers, your gifts of financial support, and your continued viewership. In fact, please help us by hitting the like button below or the share on Facebook. Follow us, or the subscribe buttons on YouTube. You know, this will help us in increasing our outreach with the algorithms that are on social media sites. Sometimes the algorithms are the hardest to combat against. Social media sites are not always favorable to Christian pages. So any help you can give by liking or sharing, commenting, it's a huge help to us. And if you would like to write us or send a financial gift to help keep us going, here's a way you can connect with us. Again, you can see that on our page there. You have our email address. You can send us a note there, or if you want to send us an actual gift or a letter, we get a lot of letters, you can send it to our post office box address right there. And I know we would just love to hear from you. Again, we thank you for joining us for this program and our brief history of ministry. And we look forward to seeing you again at this very same time every Thursday next week for our new broadcast of Living Hope. And next week, I hope you join me because we're going to talk about prayer and the importance of it. So I hope you'll join me then. Now, until next week, may the Lord continue to bless and keep you.